Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Mare, and we're breaking down the world of pro wrestling.
From the eyes of a smart fan.
And a casual fan, and everyone in between.
Whether you're a lifelong fan
or just getting into it,
you've got a ringside seat with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is up, you absolute animals? Welcome to the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Podcast, the home of hot takes, bad opinions, and wrestling takes that should probably be reviewed by HR.
And this week, it's a full house.
Because not only are Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling here to cause problems, Joe has entered the chat. Our resident chaos agent, AEW sicko, and all-around wrestling instigator joins us for what might be our wildest episode yet.
We're breaking down the 2026 Royal Rumble, the surprises, the chaos, the wait, that guy moment. Then we dive straight into Monday Night Raw Fallout because the road to WrestleMania officially starts here.
And then we go all elite. A stacked double review of AEW Dynamite gets the deep dive treatment, plus the moment that shook Collision. The Psycho Killer Tommaso Ciampa answering the TNT title open challenge and choosing violence immediately.
3 mics, 0 filter, maximum chaos.
So buckle up, grab a drink, and prepare yourself because the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast with the triple threat starts now. All right. So we're going to kick it off with the Royal Rumble, guys. We had to keep our wrestling thread on lockdown because we all couldn't watch it all at the same time, but we all got there eventually. So let's go for this women's Royal Rumble. Liv Morgan picks up the win against the whole women's roster. No Michelle McCool to be found, thank goodness. Let's hear about it. Steve, what do you have to say about the Rumble so far?
So it was a huge win for Liv, who also threw out Raquel in the process. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You know, it was kind of expected what happened. I mean, we were all talking, we knew it was either going to be Liv, a Charlotte, maybe a returning Bianca, but, nothing that was too surprising. The biggest thing, and this is what we talked about in the preview, was the big coming out party for Lash Legend. And she reminded me, Joe, of Diesel in the 94 Rumble, just dominating, eliminating people left and right.
Yeah, I mean, she's got the look. She definitely needs a little bit more in-ring work. I mean, when Diesel was, or Kevin Nash was Diesel, and he had that big run in the early 90s, he had been around for a while. So, he came up the old school way. So he had the seasoning and he knew what he was doing. So Lash needs a little bit more work, but the way they booked her and the way they always book her on these big shows is fantastic. She just needs to, get a little bit more polish. Like we talked about some of the younger talent that's been coming out from NXT and AEW. They just need a little bit more work. So I know they don't have the house shows anymore, which, is a good and a bad thing, but people like that need house shows. They need to work, and WWE and AEW need to utilize the independent scene, their partnerships. They need to get these guys and gals out in front of different crowds. The NXT is largely essentially a Florida territory, that has national TV. So they need to get these guys and girls out and get them some more experience on independence and with their partnerships. I mean, I think that's going to benefit pro wrestling as a whole the next 5 to 10 years. I understand why they cut the house shows, but you have someone like a Lash Legend, a Trick Williams, like we've talked about in the past, but get them some more work. They need to work in front of crowds. So get them more reps, and I think it benefits everything as a whole.
I mean, they could even go to just like a weekend house show schedule. Like SmackDown and Raw, they could each run similar to how it was in the mid 2000s. SmackDown could run Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Raw could run, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And they would still maximize, their venues, their ability to draw, even if like those house shows, let's say they're in a Pittsburgh, they could try, if they were smart, and lock down those lower level venues from AEW like Vince would have did in 85, 86, and run house shows there. Because if you're not televising it, that's just extra income and reps for these wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like AEW is going to Australia, what, next Saturday, and they got a house show the following night, you know. So I'm sure it'll be, they'll tape it like they always do, but it is not a televised show. So they need to do more of those, when they're on the road, like you said, do a weekend loop. It doesn't have to be every weekend, but do something, you're taping largely, Friday Night SmackDown is live. Saturday Collision's usually live. Run a weekend loop, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for both companies. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Mayor, what did you think of the big surprise of the Rumble, Brie Bella?
Yes, yes. She is my favorite of the Bella twins. However, I mean, it was kind of a snooze fest. It was a little bit lackluster. What I really want to get into is that Sol Ruka finisher, the Soul KO. How do you say it?
Soul Snatcher?
The Soul Snatcher. That's a fantastic,
She
fantastic
she hit it
move.
out of
Yeah.
nowhere. She hit it out of nowhere twice in the Rumble, and it was just like I think she was doing it for me because she not only was she the only one that looked like normal, like her ring gear was fantastic for a Saudi Arabia show. You know, like it was doing what they needed her to do, which is cover up, but also like it really got her personality across and she was able to move well in it. It didn't distract from her. And I just thought she was fantastic. Like I was so glad that she was in the match and it's always great to see the Soul Snatcher.
Yeah, WWE released a video. Soul made her own gear. She did it last minute. She got her pants from Fashion Nova and just like a regular t-shirt, and you could see her like sewing on and ironing on her decals and everything. So
Yeah.
she did it all herself. I really enjoyed the final three of the women's rumble. I thought, Liv and Tiffy, who made her return, and Soul, they were great. That made me want to see that as a match. I would like to see all three of them. I mean, we're not going to see Liv in the chamber, but I'd like to see Tiffy and Soul in the chamber because imagine what Soul could do on the chamber. She could climb up the side, do a Soul Snatcher off the side, or, try to pull a RVD and do it off the top of the chamber itself. So, big coming out party for Soul. They just gotta get her off NXT, which could be coming here shortly, and let her run, or send her to TNA and let her dominate in TNA, because Lord knows they could use some talent.
Yeah, seriously. You know, I think my biggest surprise of the Rumble was that Tiffy came back. Like, I was hoping for like anybody else, but Tiffy, I'm not a Tiffy fan. And that was like the worst surprise. I'm like, what? She's not Bianca Belair. Like, what the heck? Where's Bianca? Joe, how did you feel about Tiffy coming back?
I liked it. I mean, I was kind of disappointed Bianca didn't come back, but Tiffany Stratton, Sol Ruka, Tiffy had her run. Obviously, she had the big WrestleMania moment with Charlotte. They're fantastic athletes. I mean, these girls are. Tiffany was on the U.S. Olympic team. Sol was a Division I athlete, I believe, at the University of Oregon. They're recruiting Division I and Olympic athletes, which, now that, the traditional way of breaking in has kind of ended into the business. So this is kind of the route that a lot of them are going. And I'm good with that as long as they have people that are committed to it, that enjoy doing what they're doing. We've all heard the horror stories about, Ultimate Warrior and, and Lex Luger that just did it for the money and didn't really care about the business. And I think as they got older, they appreciated the business because it gave them so much and their families. But, breaking in that a lot of those guys weren't really fans, and I think when you recruit legitimate athletes to do something that's a very difficult physical, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, I think they appreciate it for what it is. So you have Sol Ruka, Tiffany Stratton, you take a Jade Cargill, she doesn't have the in-ring ability as some of these girls do because of her size, but she still carries herself. She has a presence. I like what they're doing. I think I would have loved to see Bianca in there. She's a tremendous, tremendous athlete. But I love it. Like Mayor, like you said, that Soul Snatcher, that could be the next RKO out of nowhere. That could be the next
Exactly.
big
The Soul
finisher for
KO.
WWE. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm good with that. I like the ending of the match. It was great. You have really good athletes in there. I'm all for it. I hope they continue to do it.
Yeah, overall, it was a really good Rumble. It was really fun. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Agreed, 100%. And I did call it, Steve. Liv Morgan with the win. So
You and Rocco, I don't know if you saw, well, I don't know if you're on social media, but we had our papers. Charlotte made papers, her little 5-year-old handwriting, and we all took numbers and we all picked like who we thought was gonna win. And Rocco won the women's rumble of all the picks that we put in. He picked Liv Morgan. I think it's a little help from Steve, but Rocco won that one. So yeah.
I made a good call there for sure.
All right, let's talk about this Gunther and AJ Styles match. It's the end of AJ Styles. If you've been listening, we've told you the game plan for months. AEW, WWE, are you guys listening to us yet? Because it seems like you're stealing all our ideas. Steve, talk to me about the Gunther AJ Styles match.
Yeah, this was just a prime example of showing, why AJ Styles is the phenomenal one. This was awesome. AJ played all the hits. He even pulled out the springboard 450 that he says he can't do anymore, but he did just fine. You can't do justice to how important AJ Styles was. You've heard, if you've been on social media, you've heard it a lot. Like, he's this generation's Shawn Michaels. He's one of the best in the ring. He dominated in 3 promotions: TNA World Champ, New Japan World Champion, WWE Champion, when they weren't even sure if people were going to know who AJ Styles was when he came out 10 years ago. I mean, he's the last of the WCW guys as well. He got his break on one of the final Thunder and Nitros. So is he really done? We'll have to see, but he's the phenomenal one. And Gunther is doing exactly what we talked about all summer long, all fall long. He's going to start retiring everybody. He's not going to factor into the world title picture because it's full right now. So why not give him something that's more important than a title and that's dominating all these retiring guys? And I think it's going to set up next year at WrestleMania, where Gunther then goes for the world title or the WWE title, something big. And I think we saw, if you don't get Dwayne next year, the Royal Rumble, I think, was next year's WrestleMania main event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I found it interesting that, and I don't know if it was planned or an ad lib, but AJ went to put the gloves down and then he picked them back up and put them back on and did the pose on all four sides of the ring, which was fine. There's been a lot of talk over the last 24, 48 hours that he might either try to finish up in TNA or possibly sign with AEW. I don't know when his contract is actually up. Probably if he was doing 5-year deals, it's probably going to be up pretty soon here because he did debut like we talked about 10 years ago at the Rumble. So I don't think he had a whole lot of injury time that they could have added on, maybe a few weeks here or there over the last couple years, or 10 years rather. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not opposed to him going to another company. I mean, I know they said WWE retirement, so that doesn't necessarily mean he can't go somewhere else. So we'll see. But as far as Gunther goes, yeah, keep building him as a monster. I mean, I'm all for it. It's going to be his, like he said at Raw the other night, he retired Goldberg, Cena, now AJ. So, I guess he's the one that's going to say who's next instead of Bill Goldberg. So, we'll see how they go from here.
Yeah. I think, AEW would be so huge for AJ just because there's so many matches. I'm sure you guys have matches you'd like to see with him with the AEW guys. I think, Steve, you mentioned Kenny Omega and AJ Styles. I think it would be incredible and he would have such a huge send off there. It could be like a Sting type of thing because he was in New Japan with some of the guys for a while, and so I think it would be, I don't know. I was hoping he would show up on Monday or Wednesday, I mean, but that might be a little, too soon because of course he does have to finish out his contract. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see, I don't think this is the last of him. At least I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, he's still too good in the ring. I mean, we've talked at nauseum about Cena and Tanahashi on this podcast, and both of those guys' bodies are beat to hell. They needed to end their careers. Tanahashi for sure. Cena probably could have went a little bit longer because he didn't have the style that Tanahashi wrestled. But AJ is still you know having phenomenal matches on a weekly basis. He can go. He's moving good, and like we talked about last week, he's banged up for sure, but I think he still has a lot to give, and I hope he just doesn't call it quits. And if he does, that's his prerogative, obviously. But I would love to see him go to an AEW. I'd love to see him go back to New Japan for a couple matches, just to kind of finish out how he wants to finish out. So we'll see what happens.
The problem with New Japan is there's nothing from his New Japan run that's still in New Japan. He could go there and, him and Zack Sabre Jr. could have a good match, Yoda Tsuji, but I just don't see the matches there other than like a Gabe Kidd, a Shingo. But, him and Shingo, yeah, it's a good match, but that's not, you know, the big time. If you put him back together with Gallows and Anderson, and then they went to Japan and were like doing the six mans, that makes sense. But if he wants to make big money, and there's no doubt that Tony Khan would pay him more money than WWE ever thought of, because you show up at Double or Nothing and bam, AJ Styles comes out, and then you build to Wembley, AJ Styles, Will Ospreay, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, AJ Styles, MJF. All those are big time matches. But if he does go to AEW, the one match everybody's going to want to see is Kenny, because they can get the rights to when they kicked him out of the Bullet Club. And what a story! Like Gallows, Anderson, and AJ versus the Bucks and Kenny.
Yeah.
I'll make that trip. I'll make that trip across the country. Like if it's AJ and Kenny, like I'm gonna go unless it's in Japan.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of dream matches there. I mean, you could even run it back with AJ and Okada. They could do that again. There's a lot of options they can do with AJ Styles. I think a nice 2 or 3 year run with him in AEW would cap his career off even better than his match with Shinsuke Nakamura. That was a great match, but I think when you have those dream matches or those matches we haven't seen in 10 plus years in AEW, and you mix in all those old storylines, like you said, Bullet Club and everything, like that's some really, really good pro wrestling TV right there. So we'll see. We'll see. I hope he does it for sure.
I remember I went to a super show. Remember the super shows they would have, Joe?
Yep. Yep.
And it was at the Boston Garden, and the main event was a triple threat for the WWE title. It was AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura versus Daniel Bryan, and I got to sit front row for that.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
and that would be something, that Brian Danielson would come out of
Yep.
retirement for to do something similar to that. Obviously not with Shinsuke, but just having a match with AJ Styles, or you can do a triple threat with him, Okada. Could you imagine him, Okada, and AJ? I mean, my God, just a lot
I
of
mean, they could team up if they wanted to protect Daniel.
Yeah.
Him and AJ, they could easily give them the Ring of Honor tag titles, and that could get Ring of Honor a TV deal if you start booking those two on there. I mean, I would want to see AJ and Nigel run it back one more time.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Nigel and Brian Danielson. He's in phenomenal shape for a guy that hasn't really wrestled much in the last 10 plus years. So let's do it again. Why not? He definitely could go. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be big money. It would be everything that CM Punk wasn't for AEW.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we could talk all night about what AJ Styles could do after his retirement. All right, we're gonna move on. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. Sami just couldn't quite get it. He came out and he was like the hometown hero. Like the crowd was hot for him. Everybody seemed to really love him when he was coming out. Yeah. Joe, tell me about the match. What'd you think of it?
I didn't like the match at all. It felt like his main event. What was that show, Steve? It was called The Main Event, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Not Saturday Night's Main Event, but the one WWF used to do. But anyway, it felt like one of those just, hey, we got this big match. He's a title contender, and it just kind of felt like Drew squashed him. I didn't care for the booking. They had a lot of momentum. A lot of people were excited for this match, and it was just kind of like, hey, we're just going to feed him to Drew, and Drew's going to, toy with him for 15 minutes or so, or whatever it was, and he beat him. I mean, and that was kind of it. And I know we talked about when we did the Saturday Night's Main Event review and preview, or excuse me, review. It is looking like it's going to be that triple threat with Drew and Cody and Jacob Fatu, since Roman I know getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Roman picked CM Punk, but on Raw. But yeah, I didn't care for the booking of the match. I thought they made Sammy look just weak. That doesn't mean that they won't bring him back to maybe challenge, in the spring or summer after Mania season's over. But I don't know. I mean, for the way they built that up and had him with that big win in Montreal, I didn't care for how they booked it. It just felt like a squash match to me.
Yeah, it was definitely one-sided. I thought it would have been, better booking to give Sammy a little bit more, some near falls, get the crowd going maybe a little bit. But Drew dominated. He's looking like a strong world champion. And maybe next year, Sammy's going to get his shot. But with the way the booking is right now, and this is what I always say about these guys jumping ship to WWE, who are these new guys taking over? Like, they're
Right.
booking Oba the way they're booking him. You have Trick coming in, you have Roman, you have CM Punk, you have look at Gunther, look at these guys. It's so packed that main event Jay Uso, he's back to a tag team wrestler, and John
Yep.
Cena's gone, but that main event picture's crowded. So good luck getting over those guys. And if Street Fighter blows up the way it is, you're definitely not getting Roman out of the forefront or Cody.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I mean, and I think Sami Zayn, he's awesome. And like I didn't watch him a ton in the independent scene, but I saw a few matches here and there when he was El Generico and stuff. And um, like I feel like he's not gonna get that shot. I feel like he doesn't fit the mold that they have right now. They're back to big guys, not just like talent, everything, size. Like the guys are huge right now. Like Drew McIntyre, he's ginormous. Roman Reigns, ginormous. Gunther, huge. Like Sammy physically is smaller. He has all of the personality. He has the heart. He's the underdog. But it is, like you said, it's so crowded right now. And there's no room for him. Like physically, he just doesn't meet the mold, of what they're doing right now, which
I
is
mean,
unfortunate.
yeah, the only guy that ever broke the mold in WWF/WWE was Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
Um, people say Shawn Michaels was a small world champion. Well, Shawn Michaels is almost 6 foot tall, and back in the late '90s, Shawn Michaels was. I'm not accusing, probably on steroids, like most of those guys were. And he was probably a solid 225 pounds with probably 3 or 4% body fat. So he
Yeah.
looked physically imposing, even though he was a smaller guy. Bret Hart was about 6 foot, 6'1". He was a solid 235, 240. I mean, look at CM Punk right now. When he was fighting in the UFC, I think he was fighting at middleweight, and now he's probably sitting at 230. He looks like, and he's over 6 foot tall, so he looks like a big guy. I don't disagree with you, Mayor. Sammy does not have that physique. If we had the physique of Sammy when he first came into NXT, when it looked like he was actually like lifting weights probably on a very regular basis, he had a more toned physique. He definitely has a softer looking physique right now. I think it's just a matter of, they can put the belt on whoever they want. They can get hot whoever they want. It's just a matter of doing it. And Triple H, he does push the smaller guys. I mean, look when he booked NXT back in the golden age of the Black and Gold brand. I mean, Adam Cole was his guy. Adam Cole was probably what, a buck 75.
Yeah, he was
So
little.
I mean, he's not opposed to pushing smaller guys if they can work and get over. But to your point, you have a Drew McIntyre, a Roman Reigns, who are plus 6 foot tall, plus 250, jacked physique. So, it's just a matter of the booking, I think. You can book a Sami Zayn to be your world champion. You just have to put everything behind him. So I just felt like they wasted this opportunity. They could have beat him, but they could have had it be a more competitive match. And I think Sammy could have came out stronger with a better booked match, because then, when WrestleMania is over, oh, hey, by the way, Drew, you only beat me by a sliver, or you had to cheat to beat me. I want my rematch, and you have a fresh feud right there, 4 or 5 months later. So I just felt it was just poor booking. It was almost, like I said, almost a squash match. And then it was, I don't know. I just felt like it took away from the whole build.
All right. We're going to take it to the men's rumble. It did not turn out how I thought it was going to turn out. I totally thought Cody Rhodes was going to win, but I'm okay with the tribal chief. He is like, one of my favorites right now. It was a huge coming out party for Oba Femi. We called that one too. You heard it here first, folks. But Steve, why don't you kind of kick us off? Talk to us about the rumble. Thoughts, surprises?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I think the final two is a foreshadowing for something to come down the road. Roman's definitely back on top. I think they're going to push him heavily. I think they're going to keep him in the picture because they want to have that potential big time main event next year. I think everything's going to be building towards next year. And if they can get Dwayne and Roman, that's what they're going to do. Like you mentioned, Mayor, big coming out party for Obafemi. I mean, Joe, when was the last time they've pushed somebody this heavy, this quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's been honestly the one name that comes to mind is Brock Lesnar, and that was 24 years after WrestleMania 18. I remember being at the Raw after WrestleMania when they did that. I think that was the very first draft that they did after WrestleMania 18. So yeah, and I remember Lesnar showed up. I believe he wrestled Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig that night, if I recall correctly. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, that's the only really big name that comes to mind in terms of I think has a future because you could obviously tell Brock Lesnar when he came in, he was in that class with John Cena and Dave Batista and Randy Orton, out of Ohio Valley Wrestling. And when those guys came up, you knew they were all going to be big stars. Actually, what's kind of funny is Cena was probably number 4 on that list. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, Obafemi, I mean, what a monster. They're booking him well. Again, coming from a legitimate sports background, he's got the ability, he's got the look, we just got like we've been talking about for a couple weeks. These guys just need some polish. Get these guys some more work. Like you said, house shows. They got a lot of really, really good people, young guys and girls on both sides of this AEW, WWE war, whatever you want to call it, that are going to be really big players in the next 5 to 10 years. So I was all for everything that they did with Obafemi in that Rumble. It was really, really good. I don't know, Steve. I don't know what your thoughts were on that Bronson Rechsteiner or Braun Breaker, rather. Excuse me, I use his real name. How he got eliminated there. But other than that, I mean, I thought the men's Rumble was booked pretty well.
Yeah, just don't ask Rusev or Phoenix about how well it was booked. Like Phoenix, I mean, hey, you did it to yourself. This is what you wanted.
Yeah.
You were going against John Moxley in the main event, being a secondary champion. To no one thinks you're going to win anything. Like you'll be lucky if they pair you with your brother. And Rusev, he's already lost more than he did in his whole AEW run. So do you think they're going to make him the champion? I mean, he looks like he's going back to the Bulgarian brute size. So
Yeah, I
good
mean,
luck.
I don't know why. I mean, I get why Phoenix and Penta left to a point. I think that was a little bit of a political thing with CMLL and AAA with the affiliations and everything. Rusev, I mean, Tony Khan booked him really well. He booked him strong. I mean, he was a freaking monster, and why he wanted to leave is beyond me. And same with Andrade. When Andrade left, I mean, I think it was more of a, his wife was in WWE kind of thing at the time, Charlotte. But I mean, Tony
Well,
Khan
that
has
didn't
always
last.
yeah, I mean, but Tony Khan has always booked Andrade very strong. So as we saw this week, which we'll touch on, but yeah, I mean, Rusev, God bless him. I mean, I hope he's cashing a good payday. That's all I can say, really. So
I just feel like they wasted so many spots. Like, I do like Phoenix. I'm not super huge on Rusev, but it was like there's so much talent and so many other people that we wanted to see come out in this Rumble. And so to like put a Rusev in there, it's like, why'd you fly him all the way? Like, nobody wants to see this guy in this Rumble.
You
yeah,
mean Mr. Iguana?
Mr. Iguana, he was one of my picks on my numbers. I did always have a goofy one. Like one year I got Santino. One year I got what was her name? She's with Aleister Black. I forget her name. Zelina Vega. Like I always get like the worst. I pick the worst numbers. But yeah, I just felt like there was so many other people I would have wanted to see in the Rumble, and then to see like a Rusev come out, I'm like, what? You're wasting like our time with this guy, you know? I mean, yeah. My question is, why, when it came to Powerhouse Hobbs, they put Powerhouse Hobbs is now Royce Keys. Why do you think that they did that?
they want to own his name. That's why. So when Tony Khan started AEW, he pretty much said anybody that comes in that owns their own name, they can have it after they leave. He pretty much made a public statement in several interviews or whatever, or a press release, whatever. So they were allowed to use Powerhouse Hobbs if they wanted to, but WWE has that mindset, and they do make exceptions here or there. But they want to own the name and the rights to pretty much everybody that's there. Like I said, there are exceptions to that rule, but that's their mindset. And going back to what you're talking about like Mr. Iguana and stuff like that and La Parka, you know, they use these names, that's fine, but like the people in Saudi Arabia have no idea who they are. They don't have, AAA TV. There might be a few hardcore fans that might watch on YouTube, but they don't have, access to AAA and CMLL TV over there. So, I mean, they didn't really read the room well overall, I think, with some of the people that they booked, but it's not like any of those were a big impact. I mean, Powerhouse Hobbs wasn't really a factor, in the match at all, really. So, they booked it how they wanted to, and that is what it is. So, I mean, I'm glad we got him in there. People saw him, but we'll see how they. And he wasn't even on Raw. I don't know where he's gonna fit in. So obviously, he turned down a big money deal from AEW to go to WWE. We'll see how they use him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to SmackDown because I mean, he could go to SmackDown, but we'll see. It's gonna, like I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be hard for him to overcome these other guys. As good as he is, and I like Powerhouse Hobbs. They're not gonna book him over Roman. They're not gonna book him over Cody, over Drew. Good luck. I mean, he's going to be battling Carmelo. He's going to be in a triple threat with Carmelo, Trick Williams for the U.S. title. And there's nothing wrong with that, but he's what, 36 years old?
Yeah.
I mean, you got a little bit left, but they're not booking you over any of those guys. And if The Rock comes back, he's not opening the card.
Yeah.
Good luck. And if you get Kevin Owens back, he's going to be in that main event picture because he's got a limited run. So, and if Jericho comes back, he's not coming back to open the card.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean, the only thing I think maybe is could they put him with Jericho? Lee? I mean, that wouldn't be horrible for him because it get him a little bit of a rub, and everyone knows who Jericho is, so it could get him over the hump, so to speak, with WWE. But yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, he's just going to be kind of floating in the middle. I mean, he was in a better position in AEW than he might be in WWE. In terms of how he's booked. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure he signed a 5-year deal, so he's probably going to be about 41 years old when this deal's up. So hopefully,
Send him to Gunther.
yeah, right. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Send everybody to Gunther. Send Rusev to Gunther so we don't have to see him in another Rumble.
Yeah, honestly.
Any final thoughts on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view before we move on to Raw, guys?
it was a solid show. I thought the crowd was weak. I mean, granted, it is Saudi Arabia, but, it just shows you what to expect for WrestleMania next year. It doesn't matter how many people are there or what kind of reactions are there because they got paid regardless. It's all about the streaming numbers and, how many people are viewing it. So it's going to be interesting. If it is the end of AJ Styles, it's a shame it wasn't done in the U.S. The people that have watched him his entire career and made him a multimillionaire could have gotten one last watch, but that's the new WWE.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought that the two Rumble matches were entertaining. I did enjoy AJ and Gunther. I thought, like we talked about, Sammy and Drew was kind of a big letdown. But I think we have some room here to see what's going to happen. We'll obviously talk about Raw, and what happened there, but the fallout from the Rumble. But overall, it wasn't terrible. I think it could have been booked a little bit better overall. But the two Rumble matches, and that's what people watch the Rumble for the Rumble, right? So I thought the Rumble matches were entertaining. So overall, I thought it was fine.
I'm just sad that Titus didn't give us a repeat performance of diving under the ring. That was literally my favorite WrestleMania moment ever. I mean, Royal Rumble moment.
If Otis would have done that, he could have gotten over him.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
big time.
Oh, that would have been great if it was Otis. All right, guys, let's talk about Raw. We had our first match here, a singles match. Javon Evans picks up the win against El Grande Americano. This match was 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Let's see. So the real El Grande Americano made an appearance, right? We saw, what's his face?
Chad
Kurt Angle
Gable.
2.0. Chad Gable, yes. So what did you think of this match, and which Grande Americano is the best?
Go ahead, Steve.
I think Kaiser's way better. He's actually bilingual. I think he's actually like he knows 4 or 5 languages, but he's perfect for it. And I think this is going to set up a mask versus mask match, which you could do that at Triple Mania, but I think if you did it at WrestleMania, that would be huge. And, Chad Gable's great, but I think Chad Gable's great as Chad Gable. And Ludwig has taken this gimmick to a whole nother level, and I think it's better suited for him.
Like a
Yeah.
which Americano reigns supreme match?
No,
Go ahead.
I don't disagree with Steve. I mean, I think both guys are great workers. I mean, Chad, like you said, I love Chad Gable for Chad Gable. He does the gimmick well. I know he got over in AAA when he first went down there when they acquired um the rights to AAA. But yeah, Ludwig is doing well with it. I'm all for the mask versus mask. I think they can get some more legs out of this. I think, like I said, we're still a couple months away from WrestleMania here, so they have some time to build this. I really hope that they continue to build it well. I don't want to see them just kind of give up on it and then it just disappears for a month and then all of a sudden it shows up on the WrestleMania card. So I hope they continue to book them every week doing something to further it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about the next match. It's a singles match. Penta picks up the win against Bronson Reed. This match was 13 minutes right on the dot. A huge win for Penta, right?
Yeah, he's presented way better than his brother. And LA Knight back in the picture seems to be on a collision with Bronson. Could that be at Chamber? Could it be at Mania? But they definitely protected Bronson with the interference and the count out loss.
So I didn't see this match. LA Knight came in and helped so that Penta could win. It wasn't like he won it all on his own.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how Bronson Reed lost because he's kind of a big deal right now.
Yeah, I mean, LA Knight I think he's a very underrated act. I mean, he gets a pop every time that music hits. I really, really wish they would do something else with him. I know he did challenge a little bit back, going back a few years, but for the title, but they need to do something with him. I mean, he's not getting any younger. He's well into his 40s. He's been around 20 plus years, so the guy he's got the charisma. He can work. He's not a super worker like an AJ Styles, but he can work. He can drop a good promo. I mean, do something with the guy. He's over. I mean, he basically got himself over with a really shitty gimmick. He came in as Eli Drake, and then they changed him to LA Knight, and it was like, what the hell was that? It's like was it like an old soccer team or something? But yeah, I mean, he's got himself over, and just do something with the guy. I'm not saying send him to NXT or anything like that, but put the Intercontinental title on him, US title, something, do something with the guy. I mean, he is so over. He's like on that cusp. He's right there. If they would just give him a little bit more of a push, I mean, that's another top guy right there. I mean, you just got to get him over the hump. I really wish they would do that.
It's never going to happen. They're never going to push him. He is what he is. He's there to get other guys over. He's there to be that speed bump to the next level. And
Yep.
that's just Triple H's thought. Who they're pushing, who they want, and that's not him. You put him in AEW and you have LA Knight MJF Mike battles,
Yeah.
they'd push him, they'd give him a shot, but not in WWE. That's
It's
just not there. Unless there's a big injury or a couple of injuries,
right.
he'll never get past. He's just like everybody else. He's not going to get past those next big guys. He's not beating Cody. He's not beating Drew.
Yep.
He's not beating Roman. They're not gonna push him over Obafemi now. No way. So I like LA Knight. I loved him in the NWA. I loved him in TNA and Impact. He was awesome, but it's just like these other guys coming in. You're not going to break through that main competition. And I know I keep saying it and people are probably sick of it, but watch out. If that Street Fighter movie is big as it can be, you're not getting anywhere near Cody and Roman because they're going to eat up that publicity and they're going to buy into that and they're going to have Cody on every TV station, every social media, every gaming platform. They're going to be all over it. And if they can get that kind of rub from like Entertainment Tonight and all those good reviews, and it's $1 billion movie like it could be, those guys are going to be on top all year long, riding that out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. You know who, now that since you were kind of going on there a little bit about the hierarchy of WWE. You know who LA Knight reminded me of, actually, as you were talking, was why Claudio left and went to AEW. He actually reminds me a lot of Claudio. Claudio was on that cusp of, big pop every time he came out, good matches, good promo. I think LA Knight has more charisma than Claudio, but Claudio could have been a guy for them too. And he saw that, hey, I am where I am. I'm not going to move up. I'm leaving. And he did the best thing he did for himself was to go to AEW because they're pushing him.
Yeah, and he's the CMLL world champion right now too.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how, as you were talking there, I was just like, yeah, what? This is like Claudio 2.0 to a point, a guy that should have been given a chance to run with it and just not at all given the chance.
Same with Sammy. Same with,
Yeah.
what they did to Owens. I said it like 3-4 years ago. If Sammy and Kevin would have went to AEW,
Oh yeah.
they would have been huge. You could instantly, they could have replaced Penta and Phoenix, been the top dominating tag team, bring back Generico,
Yep.
and you're off and running. Then you have built-in feuds. Briscoe, man, what could Kevin Owens do with Mark Briscoe? How could he insult Mark Briscoe to be the ultimate heel? Because who beat Kevin Owens for the world title in Ring of Honor and
Yeah.
ended his run sending in the NXT? Jay Briscoe.
Yeah, I mean, and like, look at Tommaso Ciampa. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew his fate, quote unquote, in WWE. He knew where where his career was going at 41 years old. He's like, I'm getting the heck out of here. He goes to AEW and he's,
Huge.
revisiting our old Ring of Honor feuds with the Briscoes, and
Yep.
wins the TNT championship. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to just kind of break out of that mold and do it for yourself.
I mean, if they're
It's the
so
territories all over again.
I mean, they're so stacked, like we've been saying this whole, episode, like, and TNA is lackluster right now. There isn't a lot going on, and they just got this huge TV deal. Like, what's stopping them from putting like an LA Night in TNA? Like, is it the start themselves that's like, no, I'm above that, or why can't they move some of these big names over that aren't going to get over, the guys and build TNA into
I think
something a little bit better?
Yeah, I think the problem with the difference between the WWE partnerships versus the AEW partnerships is, on the AEW side, they see New Japan and CMLL as equals. On the WWE side, they see TNA as NXT 2.0, and they see AAA as, we're just going to turn that into the Mexican version of WWE. So WWE sees themselves as the superior product, and what they do is best, right? So everyone should be like us, whereas AEW, CMLL, and New Japan will help each other out depending on the storyline, where they're booking, what city or town they're running. So you have more of a cohesion there of, let's work together, as opposed to, we just want to make sure all of, quote, our guys are the best, like WWE. So that's why, like we talked about, Konosuke Takeshita, he's a DDT guy, goes to AEW, wins, goes to New Japan as a partnership, wins the, G1, wins the IWGP title, and defends the title at the Tokyo Dome as an AEW wrestler. All because of the partnership with New Japan, CMLL, and AEW. You'll never see that in WWE ever. You will
Yeah.
never see, a AAA guy come into WWE, win the WWE title, and go defend it at, in Arena Mexico, you know, at Triple Mania.
You mean Roman wouldn't make his comeback at Triple Mania
Right, but you understand what
because
I'm
Kenny
saying.
Omega did it?
Right. Well, yeah, Kenny Omega. But yeah, what I'm saying, like, and you understand what I mean, though. Like, you would never see that happen on the reverse side. You would never see one of those guys go to WWE, win their belt, and go defend it somewhere. It's never going to happen. So I think that's part of the issue is, you have two different mindsets. You have WWE is the business on their side, and then you have the other partnership is, we're going to all work together. So I think a lot of that is why the guys and girls are able to thrive better on the other side as opposed to the WWE side. Because, if, like Steve said, if you're not in that upper echelon with a Roman or a Cody or a Brock, you're not going to break that ceiling. You're going to be stuck in that mid card forever. So That's the difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. It reminds me of back when AEW, like when they were kind of getting things going and they did their first pay-per-view before it was AEW, the one where Meltzer was like, they couldn't do this, and then they did it, and then they did another one. At that time, it was like WWE was signing as many people as they could, regardless of the room that they had for the talent, and that's what it seems like with TNA and AAA. They're trying to grab up companies to keep for themselves without actually, investing in them and celebrating their differences. So that makes sense.
The other big difference is with the partnerships, both TNA and AAA want to sell to WWE. That's what they want. They don't want to own those companies. They want out of the wrestling business. CMLL, that's a family run business and is not going anywhere. New Japan is owned by a major corporation in Japan. And that's an asset that they're not selling because they wouldn't sell that company to an outside Japanese individual. It would
Yeah.
have to be someone inside that would buy that company. So those are real partnerships where WWE is just the consumer of all consumers.
Well, Mayor,
Yeah.
It's
Which,
you
Disney.
might not remember. I mean, Steve, I think that was back when the Bullet Club was really, really big with the merchandise. The WWE made a pitch. I think it was kind of just like an informal inquiry, but they were looking to buy New Japan at one point and acquire them, and it went absolutely nowhere because they're like, we're not gonna ruin, our professional wrestling business over here just because you guys are throwing money at us. So, that's how much it means to them over there to have their own brand, so to speak.
yeah.
They couldn't even buy Noah or All Japan. They
Right.
wouldn't sell to them.
Exactly.
Well, I think that that's like the not sad, but the disappointing part about the AAA thing because like, the culture of that show, I mean, I haven't watched a ton since they've been partnering with WWE, but even the shows I have watched, it's really taking away from the Mexican wrestling culture and it is becoming like a WWE product. It's like a white telenovela almost so in some cases, you know what I mean? So, but,
And that's why CMLL is having the biggest boom of its life and
yeah.
selling
Yeah.
out. Like
Every
I think
weekend.
they already, yeah,
Yep.
every single weekend. I think they already have 15 sellouts for this year.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
selling out Arena Mexico like crazy right now, CMLL is, because people are so frustrated with what's happening to AAA. And not that AAA is not entertaining, because it is fine, but, they have guys like Dominic Mysterio, who has a legitimate, Hispanic background, obviously, but, he's kind of the only guy. El Grande Americano is Chad Gable, you know what I mean? So, it's like
Yeah.
they're kind of just taking it to the WWE side of things, and people were just like, "You know what? We're gonna go watch CMLL."
Have you noticed that you haven't seen Stephanie down there?
I
AAA
I
doesn't want to see her. They don't want to
No,
see her. She's CMLL.
exactly.
She's
I'd
she
be
was
shocked if I think she did that one show with, didn't she team with, was it,
Lola.
Lola Vice? Yeah, the, Valerie Laredo or Natalie Laredo, whatever her name was in UFC, but yeah. So I think she did that one show, and they didn't really take to her too well, if I recall correctly.
Wasn't that in the US? Wasn't that in like Texas?
Oh, that's right, or was that Los Angeles? Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
right, it
That
wasn't in
was
Mexico.
yeah.
You're right.
Wasn't
Yeah,
But
yeah.
those are two heavily saturated Mexican markets, though, because they're so close to the border. So it makes sense that they
Yeah.
didn't receive her well.
Yeah, I mean, those
but
crowds were a lot of largely Hispanic crowds, if I recall correctly, for those couple shows they did.
but just look at what CMLL has been getting. Lincoln Park, they did a big, huge joint show with CMLL.
Right.
Even the Mexican government, they acknowledge CMLL as authentic lucha, and you're getting people like Bad Bunny, who's Mr. WWE on their video games, wrestling for them. He's sitting front row
Yeah.
and going to CMLL. You don't see him at AAA shows, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Stephanie, there was a Philadelphia street fight. Stephanie Vacour defeats Raquel Rodriguez. This is the match that I thought was going to be the WrestleMania match. I thought Raquel was going to win the Women's Rumble and that they would have a match together. Um, Stephanie has been kind of a lackluster champion, I feel like, which is unfortunate because I like her so much. I think she's so talented. But Joe, talk to me about this match. What'd you think of it?
Overall, I thought it was a good match. I think they got lost one or two times with some of their, and that's what happens when you use a lot of props. The props don't cooperate, but they did well. They recovered well. Overall, I thought they worked very hard. Stephanie was legitimately hurt not that all that long ago. I think that's why you're probably not overly excited with her title run, but when she's healthy, she is a really, really good worker. I mean, she's probably one of the better women that they have in that company right now in terms of in ring. But I thought both girls worked hard. The finish was what it was. Obviously, it's going to set some stuff up, but yeah, I thought it was a good match. I was entertained. I wasn't bored at all. And like I said, there's a couple spots where the props didn't cooperate. They recovered very, very quickly and very well. So I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, it was had ups and downs, some good moments, some ugly moments, but Stephanie hasn't impressed me with this main roster run. If you look at like her big matches in WWE, I don't think it even compares to the matches she had with Mercedes in AEW. But I think what we saw on Monday was a precursor for what WrestleMania is going to be. I could easily see this being a triple threat at WrestleMania: Liv, Stephanie, and Raquel. And that's where, you get Roxanne deciding who she with, Liv or Raquel, and helps one of them win the title.
Did you guys think, do you think Liv comes off as, because right before this match, Dominic came out and introduced Liv, as the Royal Rumble winner. Do you think Liv is a bigger star that she's won the Rumble, or do you just kind of think it's just kind of paint by numbers and they just keep going? What do you guys think? I felt like my opinion was she felt like a little bit of a bigger deal.
I think that she's definitely bigger since she's been a part of the Judgment Day and then, leaving, she got injured and she's just been gone for a little while and coming back seems like she's even bigger than ever. And I mean, I told Steve the other day that I was completely shocked, like of all the people of the group that she was in, with Ruby Riot and the other,
Sarah
yeah.
Logan, yeah.
I'm like, wow, like of all the people, she's like the one that made it. And she was like the one that was like the least interesting to me. She was very generic, like she was, well, what's that girl's name from the Harley Quinn? She was like a knockoff Harley Quinn kind of thing. And now to see how much she's grown, I've never really been a Liv fan, but I think she's over and she's huge. And, she's huge now.
And she's another one that has a big movie coming out, so that could propel her. And it's not like a kid movie. She's got a real serious role, so we'll see. But I think she's a huge star. I'd be shocked if she doesn't win that title at WrestleMania. And I think she's up there with Charlotte. I think she's a bigger star than Jade. She's bigger than
Absolutely.
Bailey, I think she's top of the top. Her and Dom, I wouldn't break that up at all. I mean,
Yeah.
they could be if you're from the 90s, they could be the Pam and Tommy Lee of WWE. And I think they ride that out. I think you have it built in. Roxanne could be her little protege, her little mini her. And once she sees like her trying to steal Dom, she's going to go nuts. And bam, you got another feud right there. I think the Bellas going against Liv is something you could build towards down the line. Liv and Charlotte, Liv and Becky as a final run. I mean, there's a lot of potential there, and I think she's great. She looks amazing, and she's great on the mic. She's got great visuals, and she's gotten way better in the ring. I think she's a top level star. I'd put her up there with a Tony Storm, with a Statlander, with a Mercedes, with a Io Sky, with a Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I mean, she actually reminds me of Alexa Bliss's past or path, excuse me, because they both started in NXT, obviously at different times. They were there together at one point, but Liv's a little bit younger. But Alexa and Liv really weren't stars in NXT, and they get called up to the main roster, and they just kind of found themselves. They're not the greatest in-ring workers by any means, on the women's side, but they both found their characters. They have charisma, had a good promo, and they're good enough in the ring where, yes, you can strap the rocket to them and they can be, your number one, female star at any time. They don't have the in ring like a Rhea Ripley or a Charlotte Flair or Bailey, um, you know, but they can definitely be your top female at any point because they have that charisma, the star power, the character. I just feel like there's a lot of parallels between Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan because they weren't really seen as, hey, they're going to be our next big, champion or big character or big draw, but they did. They ended up being that. Look when Alexa came back, huge pop. Look when Liv came back with the whole Cena Dom thing, huge pop. So I mean, the fans see them as legitimate stars, and like I said, I agree, Steve. I think she's gonna probably win the title at WrestleMania.
Yeah, she's this generation's Trish Stratus.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good comparison. I like that.
Yeah, so the big thing that, shocked me, and we touched on this, Obafemi taking out former tag team champions, the War Raiders, just coming out and absolutely dominating them. So it solidifies that Oba is going to be a monster.
Yeah, I mean that was a good showcase, obviously for him. Like we talked about, the way they booked him at the Rumble, he's kind of their next project, I guess. So we'll see. Hopefully, they don't book him not over. I don't want to see them book him in all those handicap matches because I think it's like, they did that with Omos and they used to do that with like Kali and that, and it just kind of takes the the luster away from this guy that's worked really hard to get where he's at. So get him in there with some guys, let him get some wins, let him get some work. That I don't want to see handicap matches.
Take him to Suplex City.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Then the main event, which was a very good promo between CM Punk and Roman Reigns. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought Roman absolutely shined in this. I liked him better than CM Punk. CM Punk, 15 years ago, I was all about CM Punk. I believed. I don't believe anymore. I think Phil is Phil. And Roman's going to go over at Mania. It's going to be a long, drawn out feud. You're going to see tag matches. You're going to see triple threats. You might see Roman and Cody. I mean, you might see, excuse me, CM Punk and Cody against maybe Roman and Jacob at some point. Maybe in a tag match at a Saturday night's main event or something. But I loved how Roman brought up the Colt Cabana podcast, and you can instantly see CM Punk get pissed off and salty. So that's how you know CM Punk is CM Punk.
I think we have enough time here where the build up should be good for this. I think the fans have kind of gotten off Roman's back, and me, my opinion of that ridiculously long title reign that he had where he wrestled like once every 3 months. And they're comparing him to Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales. It would made me sick to my stomach. But I mean, I think the fans have kind of, especially fans like you and me that have been watching forever, we've kind of gotten over that now, so let him do his thing. I mean, I'm not a big proponent of putting the belt back on him right now. I would prefer him to honestly not have the world title for another 2 or 3 years, just for how long he had it before, and the fact that they, tried to change the lineage of the belt to make it, oh, he had the belt for 1300 days. Well, he really didn't have the WWE title for that long. They kind of merged the Universal title in with that to make it sound like he had it longer than he did. So things like that kind of, as a longtime fan, irritate me. And it kind of makes people like, what, you're kind of force feeding this guy down our throat, but I think we're at the point now where people can enjoy his work. He has put people over, thankfully he was able to put Cody over, and I think the promos are going to be really good. CM Punk is no stranger to controversy and things like that. So, and both guys are veterans. I think it's going to be good promo work. I wouldn't be surprised to see Paul Heyman get involved in here at some point. I know he's involved with Braun Breaker and that whole thing, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him pop in at some point. You know what I mean? So, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things they can do here because we have a lot of time still. They just said, okay, it's going to be Punk and Roman at the main event of night 2 of WrestleMania, and we're, what, 2 months out? So we have time. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that Roman brought his Ross Geller teeth again so that they shine brighter than his personality. And CM Punk is my favorite middle-aged white mom wearing his Hocus to the ring. But it was a good promo. I did love that jab that Roman did make about the Colt Cabana podcast because I listened to Colt Cabana for a while when Steve and I first got together because of the CM Punk podcast. And of course, I was like totally team CM Punk at that time. I was like, oh my God, they did him dirty. They fired him on his wedding day. And, now that I've had some time under my belt with CM Punk, I'm like, well, he's just a bitch. But
I
it
mean,
was
back
good.
then though, I mean, that was he I'll just say this, back then he was probably in the right, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
overall, based on what happened, and that was the Vince McMahon era. So there was a lot of stuff that went down, and talking about podcasts as we're doing one right now, if it wasn't for Colt Cabana, we probably all three wouldn't be sitting here. So kudos, Colt Cabana. Appreciate
It
you.
was a great podcast.
It was.
I
Yep.
loved it. I can still hear his voice in my head. He's like studio, apartment, and
Yep.
wherever he lives, Chicago or wherever.
Chicago, yeah. I mean,
But
cool thing about back then too is he had access to everybody. They would let the other, it didn't matter if it was WWE or TNA or NW, it didn't matter. Like, hey, we want to be on Cole Cabana's podcast. They let everybody go on that podcast. So that was a really, really good podcast back then because you had everybody on there and they broke character. It was really entertaining and interesting.
it was fun. We listened to the Truth Martini one. I loved it.
Love those ones.
That one was like probably my all-time favorite was the Truth Martini one. We're gonna get ready to take a break.
All right, all right, all right. If you're a smart fan or a casual fan, you're all fans, and I have the podcast for you, Steve and Mare, Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling. That's right. If you're not listening to Busted Open and Dave LaGreca, I recommend you listen to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling. That's right, Steve and Mare, casual and smart. And you know what? You could be both at the same time. And who better to do it than Steve and Mare? Steve, Mare, take it away.
All right, wipe the sweat off, take a breath. That was WWE, the Rumble Chaos, the Raw Aftermath, the Sports Entertainment Madness.
Now we change channels. Less buzzwords, more violence.
Because it's time to go all elite. We're jumping into AEW where the matches hit harder, the cards are stacked, and somebody is always about to bleed for our entertainment.
Throw on your black t-shirt, crack another drink, prepare for bangers only. AEW starts right now.
All right, guys, we're going to pick it up with Dynamite. There was a singles match. Kenny Omega picks up a win against Rocky Romero in 3 minutes and 49 seconds. Why was it so short?
This was just Kenny getting a win to progress him, and Kenny looks great, and Rocky's a vet, and it was a quick match, but it did everything it needed to do.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Rocky's there for one reason, to put other people over, which he has no problem doing. So it was what it was, and it progressed storyline. So it was fine for what it was.
Yeah. Then we had an AEW Continental Title Eliminator match. Jon Moxley picks up the win against Ace Austin, in 10 minutes and 5 seconds. If you guys are looking at Steve's screen, you can see those same thighs right behind Steve, our autographed picture of him. But Joe, talk to me about this match.
It was a good match. I mean, Moxley gave him a lot, for almost a relative unknown to, you know, the AEW crowd. They worked well together, and like I said, Mox gave him a good bit. So, and we knew the outcome, so I was fine with how it went down.
Yeah, it was a really fun match. I loved how the match started with that stiff boot right to, the face of Austin. Ace really got a showcase, and it was good to see him with a top guy. And he looked like he belonged in the match, which he obviously does because he's super talented. But Mox, he's been rolling since that Continental Classic. He's just been really taking it up a level. He looks to be in phenomenal shape, and it's been a nice stretch where John Moxley hasn't been bleeding all over the place.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it got to a point where he was literally bleeding every match when he was a heel. It's kind of funny because the fans have turned that whole faction, almost, except for Wheeler, babyface. So, and I think, skipping ahead a little bit, Wheeler's probably going to get his head shaved in Australia. But yeah, I mean, no, that I think Mox is doing well as coming back from that evil, really nasty villain heel role that he played, going into that title match and Texas at All In, the fans are turning him babyface and the whole faction really, except for Wheeler. So I like how they're letting it slow. They're not forcing anything. They're just letting it happen organically. So I want to see what happens going forward.
I think it's exciting to see Ace Austin, where he is now, because we've been watching him for a while. Wasn't he in MLW or something? Or what was the show? It was the one with the guy that has the cat that's related to Natty, Teddy something.
Teddy Hart?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was in that company with Teddy Hart, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in MLW. He was in New Japan Impact. You saw him for the first time at Pancake.
Oh, that's right. And it's just, I don't know, it's really cool because I thought he would. I mean, I misread gimmicks all the time. Like, you can ask Steve, I didn't understand why Tanahashi played air guitar. I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever, but I just didn't get it. I thought Ace Austin was a magician the first time that I saw him, but like, I never will forget him because I got his gimmick wrong. And it's really cool to just see, like, how far that he's come and, hopefully he'll continue his uphill climb. I mean, he's not a main guy yet, but he could be. He's talented. So it was cool to see him with Mox. I liked that. Then we had an AEW TNT title match. Mark Briscoe picks up the win against El Clone in 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Now, apparently, there was some sort of social media uproar about this match. Steve, tell me about it.
Yeah, Mark Briscoe gave El Clone the J Driller, and Clone no sold it, got right up into it. People were trying to say, well, he had his hands under there. You have your hands under there every time. He just no sold the J Driller. It was a solid match. Clone is talented, but Briscoe, he's over big time. He's another one you could never turn heel because everybody loves him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he no sold that without notice. I think it was an agreed upon spot because I think it would have just been flat out disrespectful, to the Briscoe family for him to just no sell that on his own. So I understand the logic behind how they did it, but like Steve said, usually the guys have their hands there to protect themselves. So it came off weird, especially since that move has won world titles, and he just literally springs up and no sells it. So, aside from that, the match was great. Those guys worked well together. Briscoe got the win, which he should have, especially, leading into the match that they had at Collision with him and Ciampa. So, yeah, that aside, it was a good match. I really enjoyed it.
Then we had an AEW Women's World Title match. Chris Statlander wins against Thekla in 11 minutes and 44 seconds. Joe, what'd you think of this match?
It was okay. They worked hard. It wasn't my favorite match, and it wasn't because of anything that they did. I just thought the booking was a little odd. I think they just kind of looked a little sloppy at times, but overall enjoyable. Nothing bad, so to speak. But I think obviously Stat's going to win that match, and Tekla, she's solid. I mean, she's good where she's at right now. So I think it was perfectly fine for what it was.
So when you guys say booking of the match, that's not just the opponent versus the opponent. It would be like how they actually choreographed the match. Is that what you mean when you say booking?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
usually what happens, an AEW talent usually has a little bit more leeway than WWE talents. Um, unless you're a Cody Rhodes or a Roman Reigns or a big name in WWE, generally speaking, the producers or the agents, whatever they're called nowadays, they're probably putting together 90% of those matches. Um, on the AEW side, it's the opposite. They have a few producers and agents there, but the workers are largely putting together probably 90% of their matches with 10% input from the producers or the agents. So it's a different mindset between companies. So, the wrestlers are going to take a little bit more heat on the AEW side if a match isn't as good versus on the WWE side, the fans are going to probably blame the producers or the agents, unless it's a Cody or Roman or a high level guy, like we said. So that's kind of what we're talking about there.
Okay. So who is gonna bring Stats reign to an end, Steve?
I mean, it could go a bunch of different ways. I mean, we say it all the time, but a returning Britt Baker could easily, step into that mold. But, I think you have to look at someone like a Tony Storm who's big time over. Me personally, I'd love to give that rub to, somebody new, someone that hasn't been in the title picture. and I think that's Megan Bain. I think it's time for her to get some shine, and we'll see what happens. But Thekla's good, but I think someone like Megan would be great. I think she's really improved and could be something to see.
Megan Bain, I mean, not quite the athlete of Rhea Ripley, but she's got that same build, very tall, athletic. I think Rhea's definitely a better athlete and a better in-ring performer overall, better charisma too. But I look at that comparison and, she could get there for sure. She has the presence about her, the look. There's potential. She has gotten a lot better. People think she's still not quite there yet, but her improvement since she came in, I mean, she was almost just with no charisma at all when she first came in. It was just like, she's, like a cardboard cutout of herself, essentially, is what it was. She just kind of stood there and stared into the camera, but now she's using the emotion. She's got some charisma. She's starting to build a little bit of character. So she's getting more comfortable. I think sky's the limit for her, no doubt about it.
And I think she's working more than a lot of these girls are.
Yeah.
She's working in Stardom. She's booked on every Joey Janela GCW show, and that's going to guarantee her booking at, spring break every year. And, it shows because she's getting better. And I think the more they pair her with someone like Marina and get Mox involved, that's going to make someone like Mox pay more attention to her and give her that rub, which he'll do if you earn it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she could be doing big things for them here within the next year or so. She's definitely, her and Penelope have good chemistry, as that tag team there. And I think she'll branch out on her own at some point, I think, and do well.
So, do you think the name Eskimo Sisters will catch on? Do you think Tony Khan will change their name to that?
We got to start tweeting that.
Okay. That and what was the Hangman and the other guy? Horsecock. I
Yep.
think these are names. These are names you should use. All right, guys, moving on. Speaking of tag teams, there was an AEW World Tag Team title match. FTR defeats Davis and Doyle in 9 minutes and 26 seconds. Steve, how'd you feel?
I thought it was a fun match. I wish it would have gone a little bit longer, but things happen.
Was it an
And
injury?
yeah, Doyle tore his bicep, and he's going to be out for a few months, which is a shame.
Jesus.
Yep, they were just getting going, but this has been the story with Jake Doyle. He's been hurt a lot. Same with Davis, but you'll just have to see how it goes, how that recovery comes along. But he's going to be out for probably 3 to 5 months, maybe longer.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because I could have seen, Jake something in Mark Davis being a big time tag team, especially being under Don Callis. They almost, I mean, they essentially were working babyface that match until Jake got hurt. As soon as they hit that DDT on the apron with Cash there, he pretty much popped up, and I think he said something like, "I think I tore my bicep." So he was obviously out, which sucks because those guys worked hard. They had good matches. Four really good workers. Davis doesn't get credit. Davis is a really good wrestler. And Jake, he's been all over the world working independents and different companies overseas and stuff. He's a really, really good talent as well. So I'm hoping he doesn't need surgery, but like you said, Steve, he's looking at 3 to 6 months depending on surgery or not. So hopefully he can come back and those guys can have a run.
All right. Moving on, we had a singles match. Andrade El Idolo defeats Swerve Strickland in 14 minutes and 49 seconds. Now, this match, I think I caught the tail end of this match when Andrade picked up the win, and I was actually kind of surprised that he beat Swerve because Swerve's like one of the guys, he's a big deal. Does this match have any significance for anything? Is it building towards something?
Yeah, we're going to touch on that in just a moment, but this was a great match. Andrade looks fantastic. Huge win for him over a former world champ. And I really love the ending sequence where you got to see Andrade, Omega, and Hangman all confronting MJF and just sets the stage for the build towards Grand Slam.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of what I expected, actually. Tony Khan has always booked Andrade well, even before he went back to WWE, which we kind of touched on earlier. I think we're looking at possibly a heel versus heel world title match. It's looked to me, I think it's going to be Andrade and MJF, at the pay-per-view. The fans are not booing Andrade, even though he's with Don Callis right now. They're treating him as a babyface. he totally revamped his look. His hair's longer. He's toned up his physique. He's aside from the couple times where he's used the low blow as a finish, he's been wrestling as a babyface. Because he does that modified lucha style and he mixes it in with the American high spots. Fans love him. So I really think we're going to get a heel versus heel with Andrade probably playing the babyface side of things here. So I'm excited for it. I thought the match was excellent. I've kind of figured the finish would be a screwy finish like it was, and then that's just the Don Callis family for you. So it's nothing unexpected. That's just kind of what we're getting right now. So I was good with it.
All right. Our next match is a singles match. Darby Allin defeats Clark Connors in 11 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, is this Clark Connors from New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Yep, this is Clark Connors from the Bullet Club War Dogs. The word is he's signed with AEW, and I thought this was his best match ever. He looked like a great fit and, worked really well with Darby. And as always, Darby sold and did some wild and crazy spots. And we got to see Gabe Kidd at the end of it. And I'm all for more Gabe Kidd in AEW. And he said he's not done with Darby and he's gonna, fight him to the death. So we got a wild match coming between those two in the future here.
No, go ahead, Mary. You're good.
I feel like I'm always concerned for Darby Allin's safety in the matches. I'm always like, DDP can't be doing that much for him. Like, this guy is going to be shot by the end of his career.
Yeah.
Modern day Mick Foley.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I mean, he's always taking bumps and literally getting bruises. I don't even think he's 30 yet. If he makes it to 40, I'd be shocked, but we'll see. But you can't take anything away from him. The guy puts it all out there. So props to him. Much respect.
Yeah. Yeah, he's entertaining every week for sure. And he keeps us on the edge of our seats, hoping that he won't like break his back or something crazy. All right, we had a tag team match. The Rascals from Pancakes and Pile Drivers 100 years ago defeats Crew in 11 minutes and 43 seconds.
Yeah, this was a fun match. The crowd wasn't too into this in the beginning, but they came around. I thought Zach Wentz really stood out, and the Rascals, they've got a lot of good teams that they can go against, like the Young Bucks, Jet Speed, Hurt Syndicate, Don Callis family, FTR. So, there's a lot of room for them to really shine and, maybe take that next step.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the good thing about, all the companies right now is there's a lot of talent on both sides of the quote unquote wrestling war. So, you have opportunities for all of these teams to get experience and get reps in and have good matches. I mean, you got Ring of Honor that we don't really talk about a whole lot. They can be showcased there, Dynamite Collision, the partnerships. So I think there's a lot of good teams that are gonna get their chance to shine for sure in 2026.
So the next match, that was the one that all right. Our next match was a mixed tag team match. It was Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm defeating Gino Medina and Ladybird Monroe in 1 minute and 45 seconds. I think that Orange Cassidy is the perfect partner for Tony Storm if you're doing like a mixed tag. Like, just so hilarious. They have so much chemistry together. I love that she calls him Citrus Boy. Is that right? Citrus Boy? I just think like she is so off the wall crazy, and his gimmick is just so, like he is just as extra as she is, but in his way. And I think that it's just a great pairing. It was just a quick little match for them. But, anytime that they're on, I think I'm just totally, enthralled with them because they're such a great pair. I just love when they dance. Like it's good. But that's my thoughts. Do you guys want to throw anything in there? You want me to go to the next one?
You hit it.
You did.
Okay.
You hit it right.
Our next match is the AEW TNT title match. Tommaso Ciampa defeats Mark Briscoe in 18 minutes and 39 seconds. We had a title change. It was super exciting. I am so excited that Tommaso Ciampa is in AEW and away from Johnny Gargano. I never liked that guy. That's just me. I'm just not a Johnny fan, but it's really cool to see him be on his own. And, I just can't wait to see what he does. Joe, let's talk about this match.
Happy to see him in AEW. Mary, I don't know how much you used to watch of the old NXT, but for a while there, for several years there, that was the best pro wrestling on the planet. If you were an actual pro wrestling fan, I mean, they were having great weekly TV shows and really great pay-per-views. The takeovers were always great. I remember Dave Meltzer saying years ago that Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, when they had their feud in NXT, which was a really, really awesome feud. I mean, those guys brutalized each other. And Dave Meltzer said that at the time, other than Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, that was the second greatest feud in WWF/E history. And when you think about what they did, um, it really was the way that Triple H booked that feud was incredible. And when you go back and you think about it, it's a good comparison because even though it was done not on the main roster, you know, Triple H really did an amazing job with that feud. And those guys, because they're best friends, were willing, like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage were at the time best friends. You can really put together something incredible. And fast forwarding to now, that we touched on earlier, Ciampa saw his ceiling in WWE was where it was. He wasn't gonna go any higher. So he let his contract run out and he can really step into, I think he's 41 years old now. He probably signed a 3 or 5 year deal, probably gonna be, I would assume, probably his last contract or next to last contract. The guy can still go. He had major neck surgery a while back, but he's in really good shape. And you knew Mark Briscoe and him go back to the old school Ring of Honor days, and they were going to have a classic match, and they did. They had the handshake to start to show respect, and those two guys just battled it out. And Tommaso won at the end, and Mark raised his hand. And I think it's a good fresher up for AEW when you get a new guy in, especially the caliber of a Tommaso Ciampa, a good in-ring wrestler. He doesn't necessarily have to be your world champion. He can be in that secondary title picture and have amazing matches with all your top guys and your secondary guys. And I'm excited for what the future holds because he's a guy that's going to go out there and literally live his gimmick on TV. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's going to give 100% every time he's out there in the ring, on the mic. So I'm excited for the Psycho Killer era in AEW.
I think NXT was where it was at. I do remember that feud, and I remember Gargano taking the knee brace off of Ciampa and like beating the shit out of him with it. And I just remember being like, "Oh my God, babe, did you
Yeah.
see that?" Like it was epic. And they were in NXT for 100 years, as DIY, and they had so many feuds, and and they were a good tag team. Babe, what are your thoughts? Your guy, Kyle Fletcher, he came down.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we're gonna have a showdown at some point, probably at Revolution, Fletcher and Champa. But this was my match of the weekend, and I thought this might go to a draw, but they pulled the trigger, and Ciampa's the first male to debut and win a title in their first night in AEW. But most of all, I think it shows how good workers from WWE could be treated in AEW compared to how WWE treats good workers from AEW. So something to keep in mind. And one of the three of us actually has a Tommaso Ciampa shirt.
Me. It's one of
So
my favorites.
absolutely. So yeah, great match of the weekend. If you're gonna watch anything, watch.
Then moving on, we had an AEW International title match. Kazuchika Okada defeats Adam Priest in 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Steve, do you have any inside info for us on this match here?
Yeah, Okada lost his gear and lost the title. He pulled a Chris Jericho, so he didn't have his title for this match. I don't know if he's regained it since, but yeah, I was surprised with how much offense Adam Priest got in this match. Could be something to keep your eye on if they have plans for Priest and Billington. I know Billington's got some big matches coming up where he's teaming with Joey Janela, so we'll see. He's going to be a big feature on the Super J Cup.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. Like Steve said, we'll keep an eye on things. Obviously, we figured Okada would go over, which he did. So Billington and Priest, they have potential. They've been kind of lingering for a little bit, so we'll see what happens with them this year.
Then we had an AEW women's tag team, sorry, Then we had an AEW Women's World Tag Team title match. The Babes of Wrath beat the Sisters of Sin in 11 minutes and 22 seconds. Um, the more that I watch the Babes of Wrath, the more that I love them. Like, I just love them. I love Harley Cameron. I think she's like a Muppet or something. Like, she just has this, like, she looks like, I don't even know what to say about her, but everything. I just love everything about her. She cracks me up every week. Her voice is just insane. Like, and Willow Nightingale, she's so charismatic. Joe, what were your thoughts about this match?
Kind of how I figured it would go. I do like, and Steve can tell you this, I wasn't a really huge fan of Willow when she was in Ring of Honor coming up, but she's really won me over the last couple years. I really enjoy watching her. She's very passionate. She's good promo. I mean, charisma off the charts. She's really good in the ring. She's carrying Harley Cameron, obviously, but Harley just has one piece to go. She's got the in-ring to go. And I think we touched on this a week or so ago when we were talking. She has the charisma and the mic skills and everything, and the presence and the look and all that. She's got to put the in ring there. But great team. I like them. They're enjoyable. They have great chemistry. I figured they would win. But yeah, I enjoy them. They're very entertaining. I think it's going to be like a super team, I think, that has to come in and beat them. I don't know if, they bring in, and I know Tony's doing the gimmick with Orange right now, like we talked about, but it's going to take like a Tony Storm and a Mina Shirakawa, I think, almost to beat them, unless they bring in a team from Japan. But right now, I don't see anybody on the horizon that's gonna upset them at this point, unless obviously you always got Mercedes Langer in there, so she can always bring in somebody. I know they beat her and Athena, so I don't know where they go. I don't know challenger wise what they're looking at. So we'll see what happens in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I had expectations for this match as both teams had been building good momentum, but this didn't deliver. Everyone looked off, not smooth, so I expected a little bit more from each team. I did like how Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford came out and Bayne attacked Stat, so maybe we could see Stat getting that AEW's women's title match at some point.
All right, moving on to Dynamite. We had a 6-man tag team match. So we had El Clone, Josh Alexander, and Konosuke Takeshita from the Don Callis family pick up the win against Daniel Garcia, John Moxley, and Pac in 13 minutes even. Steve, what'd you think about this match?
I really enjoyed the last 3 to 5 minutes of the match where Mox and Takeshita really picked it up. The tandem offense with Don Callis family and the Death Riders both pulling out all the stops to get this win was really cool to see and made the end of the match exciting. And overall, this just made me more excited for the Mox Takeshita rematch at Grand Slam.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. The match was fine. I think Mox is becoming like the insanely over, like we touched on earlier, babyface. It's going to be interesting to see how they book this through the summer, because at some point it might be after. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens after Grand Slam. Like I said, I fully expect Wheeler to lose his hair, so we'll see what happens with that going forward. I don't want to see that unit break up completely, but I think they're going to branch off at some point, and I don't know who's going to go where with that faction. I could see Moxley, and I don't want to see Marina separate from Moxley. I think she definitely should stay with Mox. You can turn her babyface as well. She doesn't have to be a white meat babyface at all. But it'll be interesting to see what they do here, because like I said, they got some definitely some hard decisions, because the fans are turning pretty much that whole faction except for Wheeler into babyfaces. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Small for Wheeler to lose his hair. He just looks like a grease ball. It's gross. All right, the next match was a mixed tag team match. My favorites, Orange Cassidy and Tony Storm, defeat Brittany Brooks and Jordan Oasis in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And everything after the fact was fantastic. Orange is like, I really don't want to lose my hair. And Tony Storm is like, oh my God, I love my hair. My hair is who I am. Like, and just like they're both freaking out. And like, I just died laughing. Like, she's so hilarious, And what'd she say? Wiener, Wheeler. It looks like an angry penis. I was just dying. Like, They can do no wrong. Anyways, Steve, you can go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, the match itself wasn't much to talk about. The big thing to look at here is, Brittany Brooks, former WWE ID prospect that was just going for the Evolve title, is now in AEW. And Jordan Oasis, if you're familiar, he's currently ranked number 4 in that Power Slap show, and he's 2-0. So a little branching off, a little stealing from WWE. Maybe WWE might lose someone like a Kendall Gray. I would like to see her come back to AEW, but we'll see what happens. But this was fun, and after the match was way better than the match itself. But yeah, entertaining.
They actually set up that one spot in the beginning of the match with the power slap spot, which was comical because Orange obviously barely touched the guy, so. But yeah, no, the match was what it was. It was a showcase for Tony and Orange to kind of get their match upcoming, put that over. So yeah, it was fine. And the post match promo was like you said, Mary was comical. So it was fine. I enjoyed it.
You guys are in deep. I just thought they were jobbers, and here they are, real actual people that wrestle. So, all right, moving on. We had a singles match. Adam Page defeats Mark Davis in 11 minutes and 15 seconds. And of course, Mark Davis, I'm like, oh, it's Smart Mark. No, that's Smart Mark Sterling. And I didn't see the match because then I would have known that. But what do you have to say about this match, babe?
It was a hard hitting match, and Mark Davis looked like he didn't want to be on the sidelines with Doyle out. He went all out in this match, and helped make Page look like the worthy contender that's going to be battling at Grand Slam to see who's going to get MJF at Revolution.
Yeah, I mean Davis is, like I said earlier, he's a really good worker. He's definitely underrated. So yeah, he had a really good match with Page here. Obviously, we knew Page was going to win, but yeah, the match itself was fine. I thought they worked well together, and obviously the post match promo, they wanted everyone to think that Kenny was going to be the guy that Hanger was going to be working with, and it obviously went a different way. So we'll talk about that here shortly.
Then we had a singles match. Andrade El Idolo beats Kenny Omega. 16 minutes and 15 seconds. I can't believe it. I don't even think Kenny didn't even get the one wing angel in, right? Because nobody's ever kicked out of that. And so Andrade is certainly not going to do that. But I think for me, this is like the best Andrade has looked since he had that gimmick where he wore all white and he would come out in like the black mask. Like, yeah, he looks good. Anyways, Joe, let's chat about the match. What do you think?
Kind of what I was thinking. Tony Khan books him well, like we've said before a couple times on this show. He looks like he's rejuvenated. He looks motivated. He's in great shape, obviously. Kenny doesn't need the win. The loss doesn't hurt Kenny. The win for Andrade reestablishes him as a top tier guy, which he really hasn't been since he was in NXT, the old black and gold days. So he toiled a little bit in WWE, but never to the top. And then when he was in AEW the first time, he kind of, was in flux a little bit. So I think that they're establishing him as a top tier guy at this point, which is good. It does need a little refresh. So you add another guy into that mix. I'm all for it. I think it should be him and MJF at the pay-per-view, all depending on how they book the match with Hangman. I wouldn't be shocked to see Andrade walk out with that belt. To be honest with you, the rate they're pushing him, so we'll see what happens. But overall, fantastic match. Kenny Omega always delivers. Andrade's, like I said, he's on another level right now. Probably the best he's ever looked since he was La Sombra under the hood and CMLL years ago. So let's go. Let's get it. Let's see what happens going forward. I'm all for some freshening up at the top of the card here. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, this was match of the night. Both guys were in top form. Kenny's looking like New Japan Kenny, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I really enjoyed the confrontation between Kenny and Swerve after the match, and I could see them possibly battling at Revolution, maybe make it a three-way with the loser of Andrade versus Hangman. And, we're jumping ahead, but I don't see anybody beating MJF. MJF he's gonna hang on to that title till Wembley. The only way he's losing that title is to Will Ospreay or if AJ Styles comes in. Andrade's great, but they're not putting him over MJF.
So you guys are divided then, because Joe, you think he could get the title, And Steve, you don't think that anybody's taken it from MJF. Like, they got to be huge.
Yeah, I think they're gonna build up Osprey to be the big returning deal. He's gonna get Triple H at MSG type return, and I think he should walk right back into the world title picture, and everything's gonna set up beautifully to that return be Wembley Stadium, MJF world title. And by then JF will be super cocky because he'll be on his world tour of hitting the indies and everywhere else that people are going to be ready for him to lose. And Osprey's the perfect guy to bring back into the fold and be that person.
When's Wembley happening? Next year or this year? In September?
Sure. Yeah, like August.
Okay. Well, that'll be exciting. Can we talk about Kenny Omega really quickly? So one thing, I mean, I'm sure you guys have already noticed it, but he's got like the Garfield eyes when he talks. Like, is he supposed to be with his gimmick like too cool for school, not enough time to really care, very like cold? Like, do you know what I mean? He's very, what's the word I'm looking for?
This is why Jim Cornette hates Kenny
Cerebral.
Omega.
Cerebral. He's cerebral.
Yeah, I mean that's just how Kenny is. Kenny's he's a little different. He's not your normal promo. He can sound like a cocky, arrogant person, and just the way he talks and delivers it can come off that way. But Kenny's Kenny. He's the best. Even when he was the bad guy in Japan, people loved him, and when he was the good guy, he was still the same exact way. He's the best. He's Him and Danielson are the best wrestlers probably of the last 25 years, I think.
Yeah, Kenny's definitely in my Mount Rushmore, that's for sure. All right, let's move on. We have the AEW Women's World Tag Team Title Eliminator match. So Mega Bad, or the Eskimo Sisters, defeat the Babes of Wrath, 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Babe, what do you have to say about this match?
Yeah, it was our first eliminator match of the night, and I tweeted if anybody was ever going to win one of these eliminator matches. And what do you know? We have our first. So huge win for Ford and Bane. And I thought this match was much better than the Sisters of Sin and Babes of Wrath match. I've been on my Megan Bane soapbox all night, and I think Harley actually stood out to me, and she looked good in this match. And she's perfect for tag team wrestling and someone that should stick to tag team wrestling until she takes that next step, if she could take that next step.
Yeah, it was a good match. It was enjoyable. I thought the pace was really good, a little bit quicker than I was used to for these two teams. A lot of quick tags in and out, good double teaming, in the corners there with some spots. So I thought the match was worked very well. Right call, put them over, let them get a title match. I still don't see them flipping the belts, but I think their next match could be even better. So looking forward to it.
This was the boob match for me. I don't really have much else to say about it besides boobs. All right. Moving on, we had an AEW national title match. Ricochet picks up the win against Jack Perry in 13 minutes and 15 seconds. Which one of you guys that said, I think it was you, babe, that Jack Perry, there's just something missing. Like, I can't unsee that now. Now I'm like, well, I used to love Jungle Boy so much, and now I'm like, well, you're right. He needs something more. But anyways, Joe, how'd you feel about this match?
The match itself was fine. I mean, Ricochet and Jack Perry are two good workers. Ricochet's great. The finish was just a little bit bizarre. So basically, like, Ricochet's out cold, and then the GOA comes out, and then the Bucks come out, and they're brawling at the ramp, and then all of a sudden, like, Ricochet positions the belt into the corner, and then essentially, Jack Perry goes into the belt. Ricochet pins him. It's like, well, you were just unconscious like 30 seconds ago. So I don't know, the ending of the match was just a little bizarre, and they really utilized way too much interference in this show in general. But no, but prior to the finish, though, I thought the match was good. To what you guys are saying about Jungle Boy missing something, I think he needs to not be Jungle Boy anymore. He came in with Luchasaurus, and the tag team was great, and then he went off and he was like this nasty heel for a while, and then he disappeared because of the whole backstage thing with CM Punk, and then he comes back and he's Jungle Boy again. I think you're just kind of going backwards. I think he needs to just kind of just be Jack Perry. I know he's got the old theme music from Baltimore from the early '90s, which everyone loves, but he needs to not be Jungle Boy anymore. He needs to be Jack Perry, and he can be a babyface, but he just needs to branch off away from the silly little indie gimmick. He was fine when he was in PWG and all that, and it was cool, and he was having, the high spots and all those matches, back in the day. But that's been what, Steve, 10 years now? So, I mean, it's time for him to just be Jack Perry, I think. He definitely, he's young enough, he can put on a little bit of size. You can tell he's in the gym, he's just not lifting heavy. So, he can put a couple pounds, put 10, 15 pounds of muscle on and be a badass, I think, is what he needs to do, really, to be taken a little bit more seriously.
And grow some chest hair. He needs some hamburger helper.
Yeah, this match wasn't as good as their previous matches. I felt it was more of a story mover than anything else. Building to that Gates of Agony Young Bucks match, that should be really good. And a strong showcase for Gates of Agony. But yeah, I didn't like the finish either. Didn't make sense. And I'm ready for Ricochet to move on past Jack Barry.
All right. The final match of the evening was the AEW World Title Eliminator match. Brody King picks up the win against MJF in 1 minute and 17 seconds. I didn't see the match. I went to bed. To me, that seems crazy to do that, right? You don't want your champ to lose that quickly. I don't know. What'd you think, babe?
Yeah, it was an eliminator match, 2 for 2 on the night, so it made the eliminator matches worthwhile. This was definitely a shocker, and I didn't expect a squash match, but Brody was made to look like a beast, and I still think he's going to turn heel. He's going to lose at Grand Slam. There's no way that they're beating MJF 2 times in a row. So, it is what it is. The big thing was how all day today EW was trending and getting picked up by big news companies for the fuck ice chants that happened before the match. So that's a hot subject topic, and definitely got AEW some publicity.
I thought the match, didn't hate it. It was definitely probably what they needed to do to have the fans take next week seriously, because, as big as Brody is, he's never won a world title on his own. So he's been a tag champion, but, they needed to do something to kind of, shock the system a little bit to get people talking. Obviously Hangman came out and distracted MJF, and it led to Brody choking him out over the top rope to the outside, and then he hit his finish and pinned him. So it wasn't like he just squashed him on his own. It wasn't a Bill Goldberg spear and jackknife, 1, 2, 3. It was interference and choking the guy from behind. So it wasn't like, it was a complete squash in the sense of MJF just lost on his own. So, and then to the second point, I've always been a big proponent of, no matter what side of the political aisle you stand on, I really feel that sports and entertainment should stay the hell out of politics, because people go to sporting events, they go to wrestling shows to escape from the real world, So I've always been a big proponent of, they should just stay away from politics, because that's where people go to, entertain themselves. And, you could be sitting at the bar or at the stadium or the arena next to someone that might be complete opposite views of you, but you know what? You love that team or you love that guy, so you're going to cheer for that team or that guy together. So, I don't feel like those are the forums to have those particular discussions, but that's just my opinion, and people might disagree. But like I said, I just feel like these are outlets for people to get away from the bad things in life and, enjoy themselves and escape from the real world. So I'll just leave it at that. So
No publicity is bad publicity in pro wrestling, unless you're Chris Benoit.
True. Got one more thing.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Before we wrap it up, if anybody is a fan of either old school UFC or mixed martial arts, if anybody's a fan of The Rock and his movies, or if you're just looking for something to kill 2 hours, I watched The Smashing Machine this past weekend. And I'm not usually a big fan of his movies, but this was an incredible movie that The Rock and Emily Blunt put on about Mark Kerr, who was a UFC Hall of Famer. Really, really incredible true life story that they did on him. highly recommended. It's a very good movie. You don't even have to be a fan of UFC. It was a really, really well done movie. So if anybody's looking for something to watch, that's my recommendation for this week.
That's funny you mentioned it because my friends that live in Buffalo, one of them was like, "Are you going to talk about the Smashing Machine?" And we haven't even watched it yet, but that's
Right.
awesome that you got to see it.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max right now. I just happened, like I said, I was trying to catch up on, I think, AEW the other, over the weekend, and because of work and everything, and I saw it popped up there. So if anybody's looking for a good movie, it's like I said, it's really, really well done. I know it wasn't a big box office hit, but sometimes the ones that aren't the big box office hits are the good ones. So this was a really, really good movie. Highly recommend it.
Was it better than No Holds Barred? That's the question.
Just slightly, just slightly. No, I mean, yeah, this was, like I said, I know this was his passion project. He was trying to get an Oscar for this, and it didn't happen. But no, I mean, this movie was really, really well done. The story was great. I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with Mark Kerr's, history, and I think it was done in I'm trying to think. I think it was between 97 and '02, if I recall correctly, or 96 and '02 was the time frame. Really good. So I definitely recommend, like I said, even if you're not a UFC or MMA fan, definitely watch it. It's a great, great movie, great story.
All right, that's the damage. AEW brought the bangers, the chaos, and yes, the psycho killer showed up and chose violence.
We laughed, we argued. Somebody's probably tweeting right now. And honestly, that's how you know it was a good week in pro wrestling.
That's going to do it for AEW, and that's going to do it for this episode of the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast.
If you're still with us, you're our people. Hit that follow, smash that subscribe. Tell a friend who still thinks wrestling is fake. And we'll be back with more hot takes, bad opinions, and absolute wrestling nonsense.
Until next time, keep it stiff, keep it loud, and don't trust an open challenge.